I just love that song so much. I cannot even begin to tell you how much I freaking love that song. Hi, everybody. Okay, so it's 9:07, and we're going to talk about a story in a minute. Let me just get this here. That's step one. Cut a hole in the box. There we go. Let's make sure that we're live and we can hear ourselves, which is great. That's always nice. There we go. Okay, well, we can hear ourselves here. LinkedIn is having some trouble. Surprise, surprise. LinkedIn always has trouble. Every time we try to go live, LinkedIn's like, no, wait, I'm having problems. So the truth is I may just go live on YouTube and just say LinkedIn. Sorry, you're just going to have to suck it up and deal with it. Not LinkedIn, the people, but LinkedIn, what's the word we're looking for? LinkedIn, the something. Software. Oh my God. LinkedIn, the software. LinkedIn, the app. LinkedIn, Spaceballs, the movies. Spaceballs, the flamethrower. Okay, we're going to mute that. We're going to hit play here so that we're live. Let's get us to the live point. Great. Oh, no, that's not how this works. It's not how any of this works. I'm trying to, get to the live point. There we go. We're at the live point now. Perfect. Okay. So good morning, everyone. I am excited to see you. We're not going to mess around with making LinkedIn work because LinkedIn being what it is, it's probably not going to work anyway. What I just heard just now out in the distance was the sound of a trash barrel making its noises, indicating to me that I forgot to take recycling out, which my wife won't care, but I did promise her that I would do it. She took the trash out. I was like, yeah, no, I'll totally help you. I'll totally help you. Totally. Absolutely will help you. Let's get some more light here. I wonder if we can make this a little bit brighter. We got some fun stuff to talk about today. Really fun stuff. So I'm excited to share it with you. So, look at that. We're going to do this. Got some cool earrings. All right. ये क्या हो रहा है? एक second. We'll get this done. There we go. Hi, now we're done. Okay. So, ADHD moment for everybody. I'm curious to know how this plays out for... Oh, I know why I can't get on LinkedIn. I think I know why. Okay, so I just want to pull out my notes for today, because there's lots of things to talk about today. The first is actually related to my ADHD. So, what's interesting is that, I am really good at many, many things. I know that. I know what I'm good at. And I also know that there's things that I'm not necessarily good at. So one of the things that I'm very, very bad at, which is not relevant to this, is naming things. So I don't typically name things very well. So I name things more like a 2-year-old does. So if a 2-year-old gets a dog as a stuffed toy, they name the dog Doggy. And if they get a lamb as a stuffed toy, they name it Lammy. That's sort of how they go with the naming convention. That's kind of how I also name things, right? So it's like, if it's going to be an article on boundaries, I'm going to call it, this is an article on boundaries. And I've known this for a really long time about myself. I can come up with these really great ideas and I'm like, God, this is amazing. And then when it comes down to actually naming it, whoa, Vanessa, let's just stop there, shall we? And so this is before ChatGPT that I learned this about myself. And so what I did is I had people around me who actually are just cleverer at naming things. And so when I would come up with an idea or something, I'd shoot it by them, I'd be like, this is what I'm thinking of doing. And then they would come up with a name, my podcast, Stop Shitting All Over Yourself, was not named by me. No. That first name was called something, I can't even remember what it was now, but it was fairly, just descript. It just said something like a podcast where I bring people on to help you with things, right? It really was not, it was not super catchy. And Jessica Hopkins, she named it for me. I'm grateful to her all the time for that. The other thing that I'm not great at is staying on topic. But the third thing, the real thing I was going to talk about, is timing. So I don't know how many of you can relate with this, but I'm hoping I'm not alone, because I'll be honest, every time it happens, I kind of giggle. I'm like, and then I'm like, I know this was going to happen. Why? Here's what happens. Picture it. I have a meeting. I'm about to go live 10 minutes from now. Okay, so it's 8:50. I'm about to go live at 9. And so I say to myself, Vanessa, you got to go live at 9. Now is a good time for you to get started, getting your stream going, moving things around, putting on your makeup, sitting down, getting ready so that when 9 o'clock hits, you can press the button and go live. Better even if you can start a little earlier so that if there's some problems, you can fix them. I follow many live streamers and they all do this. They're on like 4 or 5 minutes beforehand, just getting everything ready, nicely. And I have found that I personally, so like for me, and I don't know if I'm the only one who struggles with this or like if other people do this too, but like at 9:50, I'm like, okay, I need to do this. And I'm looking at the clock and then something will happen. I'll get an email and it's not like a notification pops up. I literally go to the email because I don't have my notifications on. Or I will get up to go do something, whatever it is. Or I will say, I will just do this one thing. And then I will get started doing whatever I need to do to get ready for whatever it is that's coming next. Somewhere between 8:50 and 9 o'clock, something happens to where suddenly it's 8:58 and I'm like, oh shit, I don't have my makeup on, I haven't peed, I haven't gotten my iced tea, I need to get going. And in my mind, I somehow think I'm going to be able to get this done in 2 minutes. And then I obviously don't start until 9:05, 9:06, but and like every single time I swear I'm going to do it differently. I set an alarm. I have done so many different things to set myself up to where that like my timing is not off that way. But I've noticed that it happens not just with, this is like I'm using an example of going live, but like it happens a lot where I'm like I'm focused on the clock because I have a meeting or I have a something, and then something will whoop, ADHD, and then I get fixated on that thing, and then suddenly it's 20 minutes later or it's 10 minutes later, and so I find that I have to be really, really, really self-aware and conscious and like focused if I have a meeting coming up. Like I need to make sure that the notification is constantly reminding me, like up until the very last minute. I very much weirdly like Teams for this, because Teams, even if you have your notifications turned off, if someone joins a meeting, you get that little ding, ding, ding sound that like alerts you and you're like, oh, I have a meeting. Oh, and then you'll jump in. With Zoom, you have to actively like go to the meeting, right? So like, and I believe that's only the case because I'm, the organizations that I'm working with, it's like a thing. Because my wife is with Zoom and she uses Zoom at her company, and she gets those notifications when people call her, but not when people join a meeting, right? So like if there's 5 people who are going to be in a meeting, she doesn't get a notification when one person joins the meeting or 2 people join the meeting, whereas Teams, you get a notification for that. So if that's a thing you can set up in Zoom, that would be kind of cool. But just in general, I have noticed for myself that I have issues with time. Now, it is known that people with ADHD have time blindness in some cases, and it's a challenge, right? In general, I'm also curious to know, for those of you who are neurodivergent who also struggle with time blindness, is there what are some of the tools and techniques that you use to sort of to keep yourself on track? Because I know I'm not, I just know I'm not the only one, because I've had people say to me, I was doing one thing and then suddenly I was over there and doing something else, and then 5 minutes later the meeting started and you're like, oh, what the hell? So that's how my morning began. But honestly, it's a great day. It's a great day. And it really reminds me today of what my dad always used to say to me, which is that a lot of times the way the day feels is built in your perspective. And I actually wanted to write a TED Talk about that because, growing up during the 80s in Pakistan, very, very violent, bloody, it was a difficult time to grow up and a difficult place to grow up in, and quite scary. But when I look back on my childhood in Pakistan and in Karachi, even in the midst of some of the most dangerous times of my life that would be difficult to even imagine for some people, I had a lot of joy. My life was great. I loved it. It was fun, and it really made me, and it was interesting because when I come to the States, people would be like, oh my God, how do you live, in such a backwards country and blah, blah. And no, that's just, those are the words that they use. That's not how it is. But like, that's the mindset, right? Of like, how could you possibly be happy living in that kind of environment, in that kind of space where you don't have electricity sometimes and you run out of water and there's violence and blah, 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 right? And it's like, well, I mean, 1, I do. And 2, I really love my life. So stop feeling bad for me, right? Like, it was like almost like this pity party for like the poor Desi girl coming to the States, seeing all the modern stuff, and it's like, this is how you're supposed to live, right? And I'm like, dude, I really kind of just can't wait to go home. Uh so the key, right, is that it is all in your perspective. So anyway, that was something I was thinking about today, related to, some mornings I wake up and I just don't feel super great. And then some mornings I wake up and I feel fabulous. And I've been trying to figure out how to have more control over that kind of thing, right? Because it's like, it kind of sucks to wake up and be like, so if your body's in pain like mine is, because I have a flare or whatever, and just be like, ugh, nobody wants to start their day like that. So I was talking with Melissa Bird from Oregon the other day, and she told me that she starts her day when she opens her eyes, instead of thinking about all the things that she needs to do, like the first thing that comes to mind is like, oh, I got to do this thing and I got to do that thing. And whatever those things are that we need to do. She starts her day so like now her eyes are open, like she's not super conscious yet. Right. So, that moment in the morning, and she asks herself, I wonder what's going to happen today. Right. And I thought that was like super interesting. And so I've started doing that in the mornings. Like I did it this morning, and it really made a difference. Like, oh my God, it made a huge difference. I've done it a few times since she and I talked, because like you have to remember, and it's hard to remember when you're like, but it made a huge difference today. So like, even though I woke up and like my skin was kind of hurting and I was like, oh, I woke up feeling like super excited, just optimistic, right? So something to think about. So I'd be curious to know, right? Like for you, one, what is the first thing that goes through your mind when you wake up in the morning, right? Is it like, what is it? And are you happy with that, right? Like, that's another question, because I knew that I wasn't happy with what I was waking up with. Like, I mean, you could wake up and say, I can't wait to jump into my garden. And that's a great, happy, joyous thing to wake up, thinking about. So I'm curious to know, what is the first thing that goes through your head? And the other question is that what you want to have going through your head? Because like, there was a period of my life where I was so overworked, so overwhelmed, that the only thing I could think of was work. So I went to bed falling asleep thinking about work, and then I'd wake up thinking about work, and it was just work, 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 work all the time. And honestly, who the fuck is Manessa if all Manessa thinks about is work? If all I think about is work, day, night, who am I? Right? Who am I outside of work? We're going into some deep shit here. And that actually, 2018 was when that was the moment that everything just broke wide open, because that was what I realized. I realized that if you took work away from me, I had no idea who I was. None whatsoever. And it was terrifying. So terrifying. Which brings us back to perspective. Okay, so there's my monologue. That is my monologue. Look at you. You got me monologuing again. I was reading an interesting, what's it called today? A little meme, right? That says, oh, I'm so sorry, I just info dumped all over you and said all these things. Sounds insecure and unsure. But if you say, oh, look at you, got me monologuing again, makes you sound confident and evil. I thought it was very funny. Okay. And powerful. All right. So the things I wanted to talk about today. So I had like a really great weekend, week last week, related to research administration. I'm just trying to find oh, there it is. Okay. So, the first thing is that, I, had the opportunity last week to hang out with several people. I made some posts on LinkedIn about just the value of talking, of building relationships with your, with people in your same industry, research administration, and so on. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, over the course of the whole conversation that we have today. But I think one of the things, especially in the last week or so, that I really felt multiple times was, my God, I'm so glad that I have the network that I do to help me with the details of things that I don't necessarily know a lot about. And the way that this came up specifically was Teresa DeFino. And Teresa, if I'm saying your last name wrong, I'm sorry, you have to let me know, because I haven't actually ever talked to her. But I've seen her name over the years, many times. Is my bindi crooked? No, it's not. I'm crooked. I've seen her name over the years many times, and I wrote an article for NCARA magazine this month on boundaries, and it was talking about how originally the article was supposed to be about my thoughts on boundaries and basically all the stuff that I have on Manessa.tv. It was sort of taking all of those things and putting them into an article format. I wrote a question on the research administration list, the ResAdmin mailing list, asking people, well, what kind of boundaries do you set? And I got such incredible responses that I decided to change the whole article. And instead of writing an article about what I had already said, I wrote the article about what you said. So I took all of the responses from the research administration mailing list, rewrote the article, and now the article is basically, this is what research administrators said on the ResAdmin mailing list. These are some of the themes that popped out. These are some of the things that you may want to look at. And I pulled out the top 10 pieces of advice from research administrators to research administrators vis-a-vis setting boundaries with PIs, with sponsors, with yourself, with technology, and so on. So it was it ended up being like a really cool article. I was really excited by it because I think that we all have unique experiences, even though there's a lot of commonalities in terms of our shared experiences, but we still are living unique lives. And finding those themes that work or that are common among us in terms of boundary setting is really, really helpful, because now we're like, okay, these are tried and true that work in a variety of spaces and organizations and that kind of thing. So it was really, really exciting. So Teresa writes to me, and I can't remember what she said exactly, but she said she liked the article and she was really glad for it. And I don't think she fully appreciated how it felt for me to have Teresa message me, because I have been seeing her name for years. She is somebody that I look up to. She is so fucking smart. She's a compliance guru. Like, she's just brilliant. So seeing her name in my inbox, I felt like a little drop, like J-Lo had messaged me. And I wrote back to her and I was like, oh my God, like, wow, it's you. And thank you. And then I took the opportunity to gush over her a little bit, because, like, I mean, if she's going to give me the opportunity to tell her how amazing she is, I'm going to take it. And so this is where it kind of gets cool, is she then sent me, because, like, she could tell, obviously, I'm nerding out about compliance. And so then she sent me, and I don't think I can share it because I don't have this set up to share my Adobe, I don't think, but let's see if we can. And, if we can, then, oh, hold on, there we go. And then I will, because I want to show this to you, because I feel like this is, well, all right, two things. Because we have this, and then we actually have another one that I can, no, that's not what I'm trying to do. Okay. So, she sent me the report on research compliance. Let's see if I can share that with you. Okay. And is this window capture? No, that's the hidden one. And then that, and then let's see if we can find RCC. There it is. Okay. All right. So, that wasn't supposed to happen. Okay. So I want to share this because, oh my God, I'm going to frickin' get a membership to this place. Holy shit. Like, I can't even with how cool this is. I know this is really fun for you, isn't it? Okay. So this is the report on research compliance. And so she sent this to me. So amazing, because, all right, you're going to see the side of my face now, because this is the camera over here, and I'm looking over here, okay? So, it has so much interesting information related to compliance, and many of the things that are really helpful for us to know as research administrators. So I'm going to talk about a couple, and then I actually want to come down here a little bit to the intersection of our lives and research in a second, but first I want to talk about this. So, in this particular newsletter, and there is actually an organization, and the organization is called, hold on, oh shit, it's called, there we go, HCCA, okay, Healthcare Compliance something. Anyway, I'm going to get a membership with them, because it has all this information about what is going on in terms of the Fed finding people and using them as object lessons for whatever it is that they have a hard on for right now. They talk about what some of the fines are, what people are being charged with, how it's being resolved. This is actually like hard hitting freaking journalism in here, because there was something, the down here, right? So this UMD deferring views, errors prompted 500K FCA payments. This is actually really interesting, because this is about the proposals lacking foreign support disclosures and the fines that are exacted upon the organizations that are not reporting the foreign disclosures appropriately. And these are, and this is interesting. Jeff So talked about this at NCURA at AM 65, I think. And it actually came up multiple times at AM 66, because right now this is where they're looking very, very closely in terms of foreign involvement. I'll be really honest. Like, the thing that I actually started to think of a lot was like, I was the House Un-American Activities Committee. Like, that's literally what I started to think about, is that they have like a real hard on for foreign involvement. And so it is so important for us to be able to educate our investigators on the necessity of being transparent about whatever it is that they are involved in related to foreign scholars, because they are going after people first and asking questions later. So, for example, up here you have this story from Kansas University where this poor researcher has spent the last 4 years trying to fight an allegation that it turns out that they were exonerated from, but they still owe millions of dollars. They still haven't worked in the last 4 years or taken a salary. They've been living in poverty. So even if they were exonerated and now they're going to have to do all the work to get them reinstated at Kansas University and so on, they still are paying the price for somebody's deep need to find something. Okay. So I think this is part of one of the areas where, as and this is what I'm finding actually in a lot of, I'm going to actually switch back to this one here because we've already seen it now. This is what I've actually found to be really difficult, I think, in our industry right now, is that, I like, yes, I'm talking about all of this, but each time something like this happens, right? So let's say, for example, and let's use this Kansas University one as an example. This person they've been exonerated, right? The amount of work, time, effort that the institution had to put in, that person had to put in, that the research administrator, now in this case, the research administrator probably didn't get involved once we got to the legal state, right? But in the most part, anytime something happens with a researcher that is going to be investigated for whatever reason, the research administrator gets involved, right? So they were involved in saying, okay, well, what is this other support, and where is there other support, and how many grants did we submit, and was foreign involvement listed on those things, and what did we find? And that takes so much time, energy, and effort, right? These are the sorts of things that then interfere with the day-to-day activities that we are trying to engage in, simply to keep the lights on and the wheels turning, the research going, and so on and so forth. And one of the challenges I think that exists in organizations right now is that they're not taking into account how much extra time all of these things take. And so you're considering an FTE, right? So we have one FTE for a research administrator, and it's like, oh, they can handle X amount of a portfolio. But can they really handle that X amount of a portfolio if over the last 5 to 6 years, the way that the funding agencies, especially at the federal level, have started to engage with the recipients, especially related to the compliance areas where they're literally hunting things down and trying to find object lessons, are they taking into consideration how much more time that is taking? So now an RA can't find time to sit and do a labor cost transfer or reconciliation because the RA is too busy trying to figure out, in the last 5 years, how many grants did we submit where this person had this other person on it who could have been a foreign national, but turns out there wasn't a foreign national, and everything turned out to be okay, but we had to do our due diligence, and so now we took up all of that time, and now here we are, right? This is happening all over the country. Literally all over the country. And what's interesting is that when I looked at the compliance newsletter, it's evident to me how often that it's happening. When I talk to my colleagues, it's evident how often it's happening. This is a bigger this is like a really big one. Foreign involvement is like their big thing. So obviously that's going to be one that takes up forever. But there are others that we have talked about many times over the years. There's conflict of interest. There's animals treatment. There are so many different, and actually in that particular compliance newsletter, you will find examples of 6 or 7 different types of violation or violation types that either come from ignorance on the investigator's part, or just flat out carelessness on the investigator's part. But some of those things we have no control over. There's nothing we can do about it. If somebody's sitting in a lab being untoward, there's nothing we can do about it. But we as research administrators can educate the investigators to make sure that they are aware of their responsibilities under the guidelines of the grants that they are awarded. And one of the challenges I think that is happening now, and I've heard this come from many investigators as well as many research administrators, is that because of the amount of work that is now put on the research administrators, right, because of all these things we're talking about and more, we don't necessarily have the time anymore to be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? Train, educate, mentor new researchers. And when I, in my first 4 or 5 years, I wouldn't say that I mentored any researchers. But once I started to understand the context of research administration, I got better at the business of research administration. I had a lot of valuable information to offer investigators who were starting out in their careers that would help them have longer, more enjoyable, more sustainable research businesses, right? Like, I'm not going to be able to tell them, hey, listen, this is how you do your research, and this is what you need to be scientifically looking at. Like, I don't know that stuff. But if they tell me what they're looking to do scientifically and how their science works and what it is that their bigger picture goals are, I can bring in my business, my research administration, the other skill sets that I have that we talked about earlier, right? And help to inform them. I can also help to guide them and say, listen, these are some things you need to know about related to spending money, related to your collaborators, related to working in Europe, related to working with foreign investigators, related to countries that are on the list, right? So that they are aware at the outset of the framework under which they're conducting the business of research, not the science of research, but the business of research. And no one has time for that anymore, right? Literally no one has time for that anymore because we're bombarded with other things. And so bringing back the conversation of, talking to people that, in our industry, Lacey Rhea is an amazing, amazing, brilliant research administrator. Cannot stress enough how she has single-handedly changed the way I think about benchmarking. That's how cool this woman is. She had a session that she did on Cayuse where she broke down in bits and pieces exactly how many hours a research administrator really has, right? Not how many hours we think an FTE has, but how much we really have. Hey, Kelly. Good to see you, my friend. I was talking about Lacey and how brilliant she is. And doing the math, and she literally shows you the math. So I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but ballpark it is that every RA that you think of as a single FTE is actually 0.5 of an FTE. So, and it has nothing to do with whether they're skilled or unskilled or anything like that. This just has to do with like basic logistics and mechanics of a job, right? So if you're doing benchmarking for portfolios and you're using the models that we've been using for the last X number of years, right? It doesn't put whatever number you want in there. It doesn't matter because without Lacey's calculation, the number is not going to be correct. You are understaffed. So if you say, okay, based off this benchmarking report, we need 10 people to be fully staffed, you actually need 20 people to be fully staffed. And this is not something that I have heard till I saw Lacey's video, I'd actually never heard anybody talk about it this way before. My mind was so blown. I was like, I cannot believe we never thought of this. Like, I can't. And it puts an entirely new complexion on fully staffed and what we consider to be fully staffed, right? So, when we take all of those things into consideration that we talked about, Kelly, you missed such a fun conversation on compliance. I cannot even begin to tell you. I was very excited about compliance. But we were talking about how it takes up so much extra time. And you go back to that. So we have now that where that's taking up like half your day. And you've got an FTE that is actually 0.5 of an FTE, even though you call it 1.0 FTE, right? Now suddenly it's easy to see how everybody is falling behind in every area of research administration. Like I haven't talked to a single research administrator, myself included, in the last year who says to me, I'm feeling really good about being on top of all of my work. All my cost transfers are done. reconciled everything. My grants are submitted. I think I'm going to clock out early today. Everything's done. I've heard nobody say that. Not a single research administrator. And like, that is very telling. It's very telling that says that the issue that we have is systemic. It's not individual, right? It's not that, oh, you're a bad RA or you don't know how to manage your time or you need to be on a corrective action plan. No, no, no. This is an understanding that these are symptoms of, oh, this is something bigger that we actually need to solve on a bigger picture scale so that we can help all of the people who are being impacted by said bigger picture scale. So yeah, so that is very, very exciting. So Lacey, I want to clip that part of the video because I talk about it so much. Like, honestly, every time I talk to somebody, like, and we're talking about benchmarking, Lacey's video comes up, and everyone who's seen it is just like, oh my God, I cannot believe we never thought about this. Like, it's so weird how we never thought about it. And if you are someone who has actually thought about this, then can you do me a huge favor and reach out to me? Because what would be great is getting a group of people together who are thinking about benchmarking in this way, so that we can sort of come up with like that new way. Like, I don't think I'm part of that conversation, but I know for sure that Lacey is. Wow. Oh, and Lacey, you know what? I'm not going to spoil it. She's just so cool. So Lacey Rhea, everybody, if you don't know her, follow her on LinkedIn. Reach out to her, ask her for her video. I'm going to pull the video from Cayuse and just pull out that little bit so that I can share that one part. Because I think the video itself is great, but I think for tactical uses, that section of it is so important that I want people to just watch that so they can sort of like be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe we never thought of this before. You know what? That's kind of fun though. It's kind of fun that at 47, I can be like, hey, I mean, like, in fairness, there's many, many things I haven't thought of before, but I was talking to my wife the other day about how difficult it is to get new experiences the older you get, because you kind of get stuck in your routine and kind of do the same things. And it's always nice when like something new comes your way and you're just like, wow. Yeah, you know what? I will right now. I'm going to do that right now, Kelly. You know, I knew you were going to say that too. I was like, if I know Kelly, she's going to be like, you send me the link in the comments. Like, yeah. Actually, you know what's funny? I actually have it in here because I use it so often. It's in my Asana. And it is, this is the one. Oh my God, it's just so good. Just looking at it is making me happy. I love you, Lacey. Okay, there we go. All right, let's put it in here. Shit. Oh, there you go. Nope, that's not it. That's not it either. Okay, hold on. Copy. This is fun for everyone. There we go. What's weird is why is there... Oh, that's my expression heart. I was wondering what that was. Okay, the link is in there now in the comments because Kelly is amazing and asked me for it because I was totally going to be lazy and not do it. I was absolutely going to just be like, oh, I should put the link in it. And then I was like, Kelly's not going to let me get away with that. We've known each other too long. Okay, so let us move on to the next phase. So anyway, so it is really good. Kelly, when you watch it, you have to tell me what you think. You're going to freaking love it. Okay. What was the other thing I wanted to share? All right, so we talked about building your network, making friends. We talked about Teresa and me fangirling all over her. We talked about, so fun. So, I'm doing a couple of keynotes for this Research Administration Appreciation Month, which is really, really exciting. And, it's what I've always wanted to do is, shine a light on how amazing research administrators are. Cause I don't, if there's anything that that makes me sad, it's that I love research administrators. I think that we are amazing. And for right now, I'm going to say you are all amazing because I really want to talk to you all specifically. What a gift to be able to brainstorm with you, but just because of like the sheer depth of how your mind works and the number of the way that like, because the way that you think about things, right? Because there's so many different things that you have to think about all at once, and you're able to navigate these extremely complicated ideas in almost like a conductor in a brilliant orchestra full of 5 million instruments, and you play them all brilliantly. You play the instruments, and the ones that you don't play, you know how to organize. Like, I find talking with research administrators to be enlightening, exciting. It fills my cup in a way that I cannot even I cannot even explain. But I don't know a lot of research administrators who feel that way about themselves, right? I don't know a lot of research administrators who are like, I'm so amazing, who will allow themselves to have the light shown upon them. And recognize, and here's what's really interesting, right? And recognize that, like, being a research administrator in and of itself is valuable, not just because of the research we support. The job itself is exciting. The skill set itself is exciting. The people themselves are exciting. The conversations we have, like, obviously there's not much for us to do if there's no research happening, right? Like, I mean, it's kind of how it is. But we are not great because we are supporting this research. We are great because we're great. We are fun because we're fun. Our work has value because it has value, and it gives us joy, and it gives joy to interact with each other, not just adjunct to researchers. And I think that that's really, really important. And I think that the other part that, like, means a lot to me in research, for me specifically, is not just about all the people that I help. So, like, I am doing my job and I am important in and of myself, not just adjunct to the research that I do that helps other people, right? But I also really see it as a self-love and self-care thing for myself as well, in that I do a lot of work and I'm excited to be a part of work that impacts me directly. Okay, and what I mean by that is this. The National Academy just said to the NIH that they are not focusing enough on women's chronic diseases. And if you are a woman or someone with chronic conditions who is typically marginalized because of said chronic conditions, and if you are this person, then I don't need to tell you the kind of life that you've experienced in terms of marginalization or masking or forcing it down and working no matter how much pain you're in, waking up with flares, having the same 24 hours as everybody. Yeah, no, we don't have the same 24 hours. And it excites me that I am part of the engine that is going to make the change for myself, but also for people like me, right? So it's like I am contributing to my own future, my own betterment, my own health. Now, the truth is, for some of these things, I may never be the one who sees, like, the benefits of the research that happens, right? But that doesn't change the fact that the research is about me, right? So, like, many, many years ago, I was part of a clinical trial with Michael Danino at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center on mindfulness. And this was long before mindfulness was, like, a thing in Western culture, right? Like, nobody was really talking about it. It was kind of woo-y, and I was in my throes of skepticism and what is all this nonsense, right? Because I was really actively shoving away the things that I had been raised with, because I was trying very, very hard to colonize myself. Long story. Point is I was way anti-mindfulness. But Mike Danino was one of my PIs. He was great. I liked him a lot. He was smart, and he was doing this thing, and I was like, well, I trust you. And he knew I had chronic back pain, chronic migraine, many chronic-y things. And so he was like, do you want to be part of this study? So obviously I couldn't be the RA for that study, so we kind of had to work that out, but that was fine. Speaking of compliance, so I ended up in the study. And it changed the trajectory of my entire life. From that study, I healed. Now, I wasn't the RA who worked on that, because obviously he was my PI and conflict of interest, so somebody else did that. But I was contributing to my own, because I still helped him submit it, right? Like, back at the time. You may not directly, which is why there's always put in the language of the consent documents, you may not directly benefit from this research. Absolutely. Or you might. And I'll say, like, having been part of clinical trials, both as the placebo, which I obviously didn't find out till later, And then having been in clinical trials, from the mindfulness one, I just, it really did benefit me. And they don't all, right? But it did benefit me. And it was fascinating to me because, I was a member of a couple of clinical trials for migraine that actually cured my migraines, right? So like, and not cured like they're gone forever, but cured more that like now whatever methodology we discovered, and I was actually, it's really funny, one of the earliest clinical trials on light. So Rami Burstein was testing out light to see if you put green light in front of somebody's eyes who has a migraine, what does it do? If you put yellow light, red light, blue light, whatever, right? And I remember the very first time, like, they did this study, like literally this is so many years ago, like now it's just a thing that they do. I will tell you, I had the worst migraine that day. It was so bad. And then he was putting these colored lights in my face, and one of them made me so nauseous. And it was really interesting to be next to the world's foremost authority on migraine while I was having these various different migraine experiences, because he was just so thoughtful and so kind and just so great. And he taught me a lot about taking care of myself when I am not feeling great, right? And like about showing love and care to myself. And so I find it heartening when I see that there is work being done to include people who are typically excluded or overlooked in the research that we do, right? Like there are so many, and I was actually talking with Melody Joy Payne the other day, speaking of building networks, about how she is really, really, her passion is drawing, is shining a light on rare diseases, like where like less than hundreds of people have it. So it's like very, very rare. Some cases we're only talking like 20 or 30 people, right? So super, super rare diseases. And she's doing a whole video series on, and it's brilliant. I love her idea of how we can, one, shine a light on these individual diseases by collectively creating media about rare diseases. But the angle from which she's approaching it is so interesting, because she's approaching it from the angle of, we are not your sob story. We're not your trauma porn, and we're not here for you to feel good about yourself because you either don't have it or you gave money or whatever, right? Her idea is to shine a light on these people's actual lives, right? So like, because going back earlier when we were talking about, growing up in Pakistan and the violence and so on, I still had a really great life, right? So people can be really sick and also have really great lives. And one of the conversations that happens a lot in the chronic illness community is like, we're not always downers. Like we have fun. We go out and do stuff. Like, one of my friends who has MS is like the partiest party animal I have ever met, right? Yeah, she's in pain all the time. And yeah, sometimes she has to stay in her house for a week at a time and can't wake up and can't get up. But her zest for life is unmatched, right? And it's so often people with rare diseases or chronic illness are like painted as these like sob stories, and where everybody's sick of being a sob story. So it's really, really exciting to see that work is being done as well. So, I think one of the exciting parts about being in our industry specifically is we get to be part of the change that exists on many different fronts, like all over the place. Like we are literally at the forefront of change in many different ways. I saw a LinkedIn post, and I'm going to leave you with this, that said, all the love that you put on other people, you love your children, you love your parents, this obviously depends on your relationship with various people, right? You love your friends, you love your spouse, you love your siblings. Heck, the amount of energy, love, and care you give to your investigators, your clients, your customers, whatever it is, right? We put a lot of love and attention and care into whatever it is we're doing, and the people that we're doing it with, and the stuff that we're doing, and the work that we're doing, right? We all do. We ourselves, me, myself, me, Manessa, you, Kelly, anyone listening to this, you are worthy of that same level of love and care and attention. And I read this quote by, I'm going to actually read it out. Oh, shit. I can't remember if it was Vintage News or if it was, I think it was People Magazine, and it was about River Phoenix, because I believe it was his birthday the other day, and he said, that we are all, oh, it might have been the vintage news. It was just so beautiful what he said. Let me look it up here. It was vintage news. Damn it. Vintage news. Good thing I can edit this out later, right? Okay. He said, we are all, damn it. Oh, well. He said, we are all stars and galaxies. And the way that he said it just made me realize that we're all important, right? We're all important. We're all worthy of that attention. And the things that we talk about on intent related to salaries, related to the hot jobs that I post, be sure to follow RA Hot Jobs, hashtag RA Hot Jobs to get access to those. Benchmarking, all of the things that I talk about on intent are really about creating a happier, more joyful, more balanced life for research administrators. And I think the biggest challenge for that is us. I'm just gonna say it like and absolutely corporations and all that are all problems. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, before we can get what we want from the leadership in various places or the salaries that we want or so on, we have to, one, believe that we are worthy of it. Two, we have to have the language to be able to ask for it. And three, we need to be able to articulate what it is that we want very specifically so that we can get it and the benefits, right? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done before we can get the people at the top to listen to us, regardless of whether they are or not the reason for it. But I think the hard part is feeling like we are worthy of turning that attention onto ourselves. So I think the thing that I want to share with all of you as we move into September, which is going to be the Research Administrator Appreciation Day month, whenever that is that I appreciate you. I appreciate us. I think that our job is literally the greatest job in the world. I love it so much. I spend day and night thinking about it. So much so that I want you to stay tuned for our next video, which is coming out very soon. And here's what we're going to answer. Okay, that's what we're going to wrap up with, is what is the next video going to answer? Have you ever wondered, how do we get the money? One of the questions I get asked from new research administrators is, how do we get the money? We get the award letter. Somebody says they're going to give us money. How do we actually get it, right? And it was really interesting is I think I had been in research administration for maybe 2 years before I understood that the way that we got the money into the organization depended on a variety of different factors. And I was like, holy shit, I had absolutely no idea that these are even things I needed to know about. So I made a video that basically talks about, all right, depending on the type of project that you're working on, the type of sponsor that you have, the money is going to come to your organization in a few different ways. And your responsibility as a research administrator in terms of how you will engage and interact with those funds is going to vary depending on how that money comes in. So if that is something you've ever been interested in, keep an eye out. Make sure that you go to manessa.tv. You can find me on YouTube looking for Manessa. You can find me on LinkedIn looking for Manessa. Make sure that you follow so that you get access to that video as soon as it goes out, because don't we all want to know, how do we get the money? Otherwise, have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Kelly, it was so gorgeous to see you as always. And I'm probably going to see you just in a few days. Like, Kelly and I literally see each other every week. So I'm probably going to see you in just a few days. For the rest of you, have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care.